"You can't be in here. Maintenance uses the back entrance." The words landed like a slap across polished marble. It was 9:42 a.m. in downtown Chicago, sunlight spilling through a 40-foot glass wall, catching the steel edges of the lobby. The man she was talking to didn't answer. He just stood there, quiet, composed, his reflection split across the floor tiles like two versions of himself. One seen, one judged. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below, and if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to Darius Cole. He wore a plain gray polo, dark chinos, and sneakers that had seen real pavement. No suit, no tie, no sign of wealth except for how calm he was. The receptionist, Shelby Nash, 29, with the voice of someone who loved having the last word, looked him up and down and smirked. "Sir, tenants use badge access only. This area is not open to the public." Darius replied softly, "I'm not the public." She crossed her arms. "Then who are you? Custodial?" He almost smiled. "Something like that." Her laugh rang through the lobby, too loud for a place built to echo power. Two other employees looked up from the security desk, half interested, half amused. One of them muttered, "Probably lost. They always wander in from the back lot." Darius didn't flinch. He'd heard that tone before, the tone that decided who belonged before asking a single question. Years ago, at 23, he'd walked into a job fair wearing the same kind of clothes. A recruiter told him, "You look more like support staff." That sentence had followed him through every boardroom he later bought. Now he was standing in a building that carried his name on the deed, and someone was still saying it. Shelby tapped the desk. "I'm calling security. Are you sure you want to do that?" His voice was steady, almost kind. She rolled her eyes. "Company policy." The guard approached, broad shoulders, heavy steps, radio crackling. "Sir, you'll need to wait outside." Behind them, a young intern, Malik, 19, paused mid-delivery, holding a box of files. His eyes flicked between the guard and the man in sneakers. Something about Darius's stillness made him pull out his phone and start recording, quietly, hands trembling. The lobby, moments ago filled with keyboard clicks and small talk, tightened. Air conditioning hummed, louder than breathing. Darius set his phone on the counter. "If you're done assuming, maybe try asking." Shelby scoffed. "Ask what?" He met her gaze. "Who owns the building you're standing in?" She blinked, thrown off for a second, then forced a smile. "Not you." Darius tilted his head slightly. "We'll see." The guard stepped closer. "Sir, you need to leave now." Darius didn't move. His calm pressed against their noise like glass against flame. Somewhere outside, a horn blared. Inside, no one spoke. Malik's camera light glowed red, tiny, trembling, witness to something about to shift. Darius reached into his pocket, not fast, not slow, deliberate. A single card gleamed between his fingers, matte black, embossed with two words that would silence the entire room. But not yet. He looked at Shelby one last time and said, "You're certain you want to finish this conversation on your terms?" Her confidence flickered. The guard hesitated, and in that small pause, just air, silence, tension, the ground began to tilt toward the truth. 10 minutes from now, everyone in this lobby would wish they'd simply asked his name. The elevator dinged once sharp, metallic, and outstepped the building manager, Eric Dalton. Mid-40s, navy suit, self-importance polished to a shine. "What's the issue here?" he asked, already assuming the answer. Shelby jumped at the chance to perform. "This man's trying to access restricted floors without a badge. He says he's not public, but he won't say who he is." Eric's eyes scanned Darius, landing on the sneakers first, then the polo, then the silence. "Sir, you'll need to step outside until we confirm your credentials." Darius's tone stayed calm. "And who exactly will confirm them?" "I will," Eric said, puffing himself taller. Darius nodded once. "Perfect." Behind them, Malik shifted his phone lower, trying to look invisible but catching every word. The recording light flickered across his fingertips like a secret about to matter. Eric turned to Shelby. "Next time, don't let service staff loiter in the main lobby. It reflects badly on the tenants." The sentence hung there, thick and ugly. A woman waiting for an elevator looked over, frowning. Two delivery guys paused mid-step. You could feel the room deciding what kind of place this was. Darius exhaled quietly. "Service staff," he repeated. Eric raised a brow. Did I misspeak? No, Darius said. You just told on yourself. Shelby blinked, unsure if that was an insult or a threat. Eric crossed his arms. Security. Remove him. The guard stepped forward again, this time with purpose. Darius didn't move. He simply slid his phone across the counter. The screen was lit a single contact name visible at the top. Avery, Operations Director. He pressed call. Mr. Cole? Came a crisp voice on speaker. Good morning, Avery. We're doing a spot compliance check at the Monroe Tower. It seems our property staff need a refresher on access protocol. Avery hesitated only a second. Understood, sir. Would you like me to activate audit procedure? Phase 1, Darius said softly. Mark time, 9:47 a.m. Every eye in the lobby flicked to the phone. Shelby's mouth parted. Eric's posture faltered. The guard froze mid-step. Avery's voice continued, now professional and cold. Logged and confirmed. Building manager Eric Dalton and reception staff Shelby Nash currently engaged. Video verification active. Proceeding to internal review. What's happening? Shelby stammered. Darius didn't answer. He turned toward the security guard. Still want me to step outside? The man shook his head, barely breathing. Malik's whisper barely carried, Yo, he owns this place. Someone near the elevators murmured, Wait, what did she just call him? Mr. Cole? Eric tried to recover. Sir, this isn't necessary. A simple misunderstanding. Darius cut him off, voice even quieter but sharper now. You called me service staff. You tried to remove me from my own building. The misunderstanding was yours. Eric swallowed. His voice cracked. You're Darius Cole? Darius finally looked him full in the face. Owner, Cole Properties Group. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was punishment. Shelby's hand slipped from the desk. The security guard stepped back, muttering, I didn't know. Darius replied, That's the point. Across the lobby, Malik lowered his phone but didn't stop recording. This wasn't just evidence anymore, it was history repeating itself with a different ending. Darius turned to Avery's voice still on speaker. Flag the incident. Lock badge access for Eric Dalton and Shelby Nash until further notice. Notify HR to prepare terminations pending review. Yes, sir, Avery said. Actioning now. The receptionist's tablet pinged. Her login window vanished. The guard's radio chirped once, then silence. Every system froze in unison. The lobby, for one breath, seemed to hold still. Eric whispered, Mr. Cole, please. But Darius was already walking toward the elevators, hands in his pockets, calm as gravity. Behind him, the whisper spread like wildfire. He owns the building. The guy they just mocked? Man, that's wild. No shouting, no spectacle, just consequence unfolding in real time. And as the elevator doors closed around him, Darius said one sentence quiet enough for only the room to hear. I built this place so people could work with dignity, not define it. The doors slid shut. The air that had once carried laughter now carried silence heavy enough to remember. The elevator rose in silence, the faint hum of its motor like a heartbeat behind glass. Darius stood still, eyes on the floor numbers climbing 14, 15, 16. Each light blinked like a countdown to reckoning. By the time the doors opened, his reflection had steadied into that calm, unshakable version of himself the world rarely saw until it was too late to apologize. He stepped into the 17th floor office suite Atlas Marketing Group, tenants of the building, the same company whose employees had mocked him in the lobby minutes ago. Laughter spilled from inside, the kind that fills rooms built on comfort, not respect. Shelby's manager, a man named Todd Renshaw, regional director, mid-30s, self-satisfied, was leaning on a desk, retelling the story already. I'm telling you, he walked in like he owned the place. Maintenance polo, cheap shoes, asking for elevator access. You can't make this stuff up. The interns chuckled nervously, one of them glancing toward the doorway and froze. Todd? He turned. Darius was standing right there. The laughter died instantly, like someone had pulled the air out of the room. Todd straightened, half a smile still caught on his face. Can I help you? You already did, Darius said. 10 minutes ago. Todd's eyes darted toward the phone on his desk, the one that had been buzzing with notifications from downstairs. He could see the words even from where he stood. Owner presence on site, audit active. Darius walked in slowly, scanning the workspace. So this is the office that represents Atlas Marketing Group. He stopped beside a framed poster on the wall, Diversity Drives Growth. The irony burned quietly. Todd cleared his throat. Look, mister. Cole, Darius finished. You've probably seen the name. It's on the lease. Silence rippled through the cubicles. One by one, screens dimmed as employees turned their monitors off, pretending to be invisible. Darius turned toward the wide glass window overlooking Michigan Avenue. I built this tower for people who believed in something bigger than appearances. You turned it into a place that measures respect by a shirt collar. Todd's voice wavered. We didn't know. You didn't ask, Darius cut in. Downstairs, Avery's voice returned through his earpiece. Sir, compliance confirms repeated bias complaints against Atlas staff. Do you want to proceed with eviction? Darius didn't hesitate. Effective immediately. Terminate their tenancy. Issue a full clearance notice. Todd's jaw fell. You can't just... I can, Darius said, and I just did. Avery's tone came through firm, professional. Notices are being printed. Security detail en route for supervised exit. Todd's bravado cracked. Mr. Cole, please, it was a misunderstanding. You have to believe me. Darius looked him dead in the eye. Belief is earned. You cashed yours out for arrogance. Behind him, a few younger employees stood frozen. 2 women, 1 man, all silent witnesses to power, not shouted but shown. One of them whispered, He really owns this building? The other nodded. Every floor. Darius walked to the center of the room, pausing at a conference table littered with laptops and coffee cups. Pack your things, he said quietly. You've got 10 minutes, same time you gave me. The line hit like a gavel. Nobody moved at first. Then chairs scraped, drawers opened, keyboards clicked off. The hum of panic filled the air. A delivery courier stepped out of the elevator just in time to see the chaos and the man standing calmly in the middle. Everything okay, sir? Darius nodded. Better than it's been in years. From behind, Todd whispered something a final reach for dignity that wasn't there. You're overreacting. Darius turned slightly. No, I'm remembering. For a second, his mind flashed 20 years earlier, outside a corporate tower that wouldn't let him pass the front desk because of his sneakers. The same humiliation, the same laughter, the same look. And now, here he was, owning the building that once symbolized what he wasn't allowed to enter. He looked back at Todd. You think I'm doing this for me? I'm doing it so the next man who walks in looking like I did this morning doesn't get treated like a ghost. Security arrived calm, professional, respectful. Not a word was raised. Not a curse was thrown. Just the sound of quiet consequence moving through glass walls. Darius turned toward the window again, Chicago sunlight flooding the room like judgment made visible. 10 minutes, he said softly. That's all it takes to learn what respect really costs. The line lingered, heavy, certain. Down below, the lobby camera still rolled, capturing the moment power didn't shout. It simply walked back in. By 10:03 a.m., word had spread through the entire building. Emails pinged. Whispers moved faster than elevators. The story traveled floor to floor like an electrical current. The man they mocked downstairs was the owner. Inside the 17th floor office, the atmosphere had shifted from arrogance to panic. Card readers blinked red. Computers locked. Printers stopped mid-page. Every digital hum in the room went silent, replaced by the sound of breathing and regret. Todd Renshaw stood in the center, phone pressed to his ear, voice cracking. It's some kind of system glitch. A voice on the other end interrupted. No, Todd, it's not. Cole Properties just revoked our lease. We're being evicted. The color drained from his face. Behind him, employees began packing with trembling hands, each movement quick but quiet, like they were afraid of breaking the air itself. Darius stood near the glass, hands behind his back. He wasn't watching them. He was watching the city outside the skyline he helped build, the skyline that had once refused to see him. Avery's voice came through the earpiece again. Sir, building security confirms clearance teams are in place. Do you wish to address the tenants personally before they leave? Darius exhaled slowly. Yes, they need to hear this. He turned. The room froze. You called me maintenance, he began, his voice low, deliberate. You laughed at what I wore. You decided who I was before you even asked my name. That's not company policy. That's bias with a badge on it. No one spoke. Even the sound of packing stopped. He walked toward the conference table, running a hand along its surface. Do you know what it costs to build something like this? Not the money, the hours, the years, the nights wondering if they'll ever see you as equal. I built this tower because I wanted people to walk in here and feel they belonged. But you turned belonging into permission. Todd tried to speak, voice brittle. We didn't mean. You did, Darius said. That's what makes it real. He reached for a chair and pulled it out, sitting down calm, centered, almost meditative. The authority in his silence filled the room more than any shouting could. Let me tell you something, he continued. Respect doesn't start when someone earns a title. It starts when you can't tell who has one. A younger employee near the back, Maya, early 20s, eyes wide, swallowed hard. Mr. Cole, I tried to tell them earlier. About the man in the lobby. I knew they were wrong. He nodded once. Then you'll stay. The new management will need people who see before they judge. Maya blinked in disbelief, gratitude rising in her throat. Thank you, sir, Darius simply replied. Don't thank me. Just remember. He turned to Todd again. Your company has 1 hour to clear this floor. Avery will coordinate the exit. You'll receive official termination of tenancy by noon. Todd stammered. You can't. Darius cut him off gently. I can, because for once, the man you underestimated has the power to decide how this ends. He stood, buttoning his simple gray polo as if it were armor. You built an office full of mirrors that only reflected your own faces. I'm replacing them with windows. People deserve to see out and in. Ember. Security re-entered. Calm, efficient. No one resisted. No one argued now. The weight of consequence had already landed. As Darius moved toward the door, Malik appeared the intern from the lobby phone, still in hand, eyes filled with awe. Sir, the video's gone viral. 2 million views in an hour. They're calling it the janitor-owner story. Darius paused. Deletate. Malik hesitated. Sir? I don't need the internet to fix what's broken, Darius said quietly. I'll do that myself. He stepped into the hallway. The hum of the city met him like applause muffled behind glass. The doors to the suite closed softly behind him, not slammed, not locked, just closed. Final. Inside, Todd sat down at his desk, head in his hands. The same desk where he'd once joked about appearances now felt heavier than stone. Downstairs, Shelby's phone buzzed again, showing the company email headline, effective immediately. Termination of tenancy. Atlas Marketing Group. End that. She read it twice. Then again, Darius reached the lobby just as sunlight broke across the marble floor. He stopped, taking in the same space that had rejected him less than 20 minutes ago. Now it was quiet, respectful. He looked up at the security cameras, knowing they were still recording. Justice doesn't always shout, he said under his breath. Sometimes it just shows up wearing sneakers. Oh, and with that, he walked out into the morning light, a man who had nothing left to prove, only a building full of lessons left behind. Outside, the city was fully awake, sirens in the distance, traffic humming like restless applause. The wind along Monroe Street carried a late-morning chill, but Darius didn't feel it. He walked with that calm stride of someone who had already won the argument without ever raising his voice. A black SUV slowed to the curb. The window rolled down. Carla Evans, his senior operations director, leaned out, tablet in hand. Everything's complete, sir. Legal signed off. Atlas Marketing is officially vacating by noon. HR already flagged their internal complaint records. It's ugly. Darius nodded. Let the record stand. Don't erase it. Carla raised an eyebrow. Most CEOs would bury it to protect reputation. He looked at her steady. I'm not most CEOs. They drove toward the next property, another building under Cole Properties, but his mind wasn't on the drive. His reflection in the tinted glass window showed 2 men again. The one who'd been dismissed, and the one who had built an empire from it. For a moment, the flashback came sharp, uninvited. He was 24, standing in the rain outside a downtown tower. He'd come for an interview soaked, late, holding a resume in a plastic sleeve. The receptionist barely looked up. Maintenance uses the rear door, she'd said. He'd walked away that day humiliated, but lit by something no one could name yet. Now, 2 decades later, he owned 5 towers in that same district. And yet, the echoes hadn't changed much. The looks, the hesitation, the quiet disbelief when success didn't wear the right uniform. Carla's voice broke the memory. You want to review the tenant list for the next floor? No, Darius said. Not yet. I want to walk back in. Carla blinked. To the same building? He nodded. I want them to see what ownership looks like: calm, human, not angry. They turned the SUV around. When they stepped back into the lobby, every head lifted. The security guard straightened his posture. Shelby, still behind the desk, froze mid-keystroke. Darius gave her a polite nod. Morning again. Her voice trembled. Mr. Cole, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. He smiled faintly. That's what I'm trying to change. He set a folder on the counter. Inside were fresh contracts. Opportunities for minority-owned startups to lease new spaces under Cole properties at reduced rates. Next time someone walks in dressed like me, he said, you'll know they might be here to sign one of these. Shelby's eyes brimmed with something between shame and gratitude. Sir, I don't deserve, he interrupted softly. No one starts out deserving. We start by learning. She nodded, silent tears forming. Carla watched him, half in awe. You're letting her stay? People can change, he said. Buildings can't. That's why someone has to teach them. As he turned to leave, Malik the intern appeared again, holding a small envelope. Sir, I deleted the video like you asked, but people still saw it. It's everywhere now. News outlets, TikTok edits, think pieces. They're calling you the sneaker CEO. Darius chuckled quietly. Let them call me what they want. Just make sure they spell the lesson right. N. He took the envelope. Inside was a handwritten note from Maya, the young woman he'd kept from being laid off upstairs. Thank you for showing us what quiet power looks like. He folded it once and slipped it into his pocket. Keep that, intern, he said to Carla. People who see truth before it's announced they're the future. As they exited, a man on the sidewalk recognized him, phone already raised. Hey, you're the CEO from the video, right? The one they kicked out? Darius gave a calm nod. The same one. The man grinned. You really fired a whole office? Darius paused, considering. No, I educated one. The crowd around them chuckled softly, impressed not by the revenge but by the restraint. He looked back once more at the tower, his tower sunlight striking its mirrored surface like an apology. You don't change systems by shouting at them, he murmured. You change them by owning the foundation they stand on. Carla smiled. That's going in the documentary someday. He laughed under his breath. Then make sure they film the sneakers. They crossed the street, the camera of someone's phone following quietly, capturing not a man flaunting victory but one teaching the cost of grace. And somewhere between the noise of traffic and the hum of the city, the story had already turned into legend. The tale of the black CEO who walked into his own building, was mocked for his clothes, and walked out rewriting what respect looks like. The next morning, the story had a life of its own. It was on every screen, stitched on TikTok, dissected on LinkedIn, headlined on news apps that usually ignored stories about dignity. The Sneaker CEO, how one man redefined power. Black executive evicts disrespectful tenants with class. But Darius Cole didn't read any of it. He was already in motion, sitting in the back of a town car on his way to a community development meeting on the south side, the neighborhood where his story had started. The driver glanced in the mirror. You seen what they're saying about you, sir? Darius smiled slightly. They'll talk for a week, then they'll move on. I'm not doing this for headlines. The driver nodded, respect in his eyes. Still, felt good watching you handle him like that. Darius didn't answer. He just looked out the window at rows of brick buildings, some abandoned, some reborn like reminders of the two ways people could react to being underestimated: break or build. At Cole Properties headquarters, the phones hadn't stopped ringing. Carla stood at her desk, managing a flood of calls from reporters, investors, and activists. Yes, Mr. Cole has seen the footage. No, he will not make a public comment. The footage speaks for itself. When Darius walked in, she handed him a stack of printouts. New tenant requests tripled overnight. Half of them say they want to work in a building where the owner shows integrity. He gave a small smile. Then we'll earn it. The world's watching now. Let's give them something worth watching. He set the papers down, eyes drifting to the TV screen in the corner. A talk show host was debating the viral video. One guest said, "He overreacted, it was just a mistake." Another fired back, "No, it's the first time a black executive didn't have to prove his humanity before his title." Darius turned away. They'll argue about it until the next scandal. But somewhere, someone learned to ask a name before they assume it. That's enough. Later that afternoon, he took the elevator up to the rooftop terrace, his private space overlooking the city. From up here, Chicago looked like a circuit board pulsing with ambition and memory. He leaned on the glass railing, breathing in the skyline. A shadow appeared behind him. Malik, the intern, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Didn't want to interrupt, sir, just wanted to say thank you again." Darius gestured for him to sit. "Tell me something, Malik. You filmed that video, right?" Malik nodded nervous. "Yes, sir." "Why?" "I just thought people should see what happens to us when we stay calm and still get treated like criminals." Darius nodded slowly. "And what did you learn watching it?" Malik thought for a moment. "That silence can be louder than yelling. That's what got them." A faint smile touched Darius's face. "Then keep that lesson. You'll need it when you're running your own company." Malik blinked. "You mean?" "Yeah," Darius said. "Start shadowing with Carla next week. You've got the right eyes. You see people." The young man nearly dropped the coffee. "Thank you, Mr. Cole. I won't let you down." Darius looked back at the skyline. "Just don't forget where you started. The system will try to make you." For a while, they both sat in silence, the wind moving between them, carrying more than words ever could. Below, the city buzzed. Somewhere a headline refreshed. A comment thread lit up. A debate reignited. But up here, it was quiet, the kind of quiet you earn. As the sun began to drop, the light turned golden across the mirrored towers, including the one that had been the stage for yesterday's humiliation. Darius watched its reflection shimmer across his coffee cup and said softly, "Funny thing about reflections, they only show what's on the surface. It takes ownership to see what's underneath." Carla's voice came through his phone. "The press is asking for a statement. What do I tell them this time?" He answered without looking away from the skyline. "Tell them it wasn't about firing anyone. It was about reminding everyone who we are, even when the world forgets." And with that, he closed his eyes, letting the hum of the city fade beneath him, not as a man who'd won revenge, but as one who'd redefined what power sounds like when it whispers instead of roars. By the end of the week, the noise had reached boardrooms, newsrooms, and classrooms. University professors were quoting him in lectures about corporate ethics. Teenagers were stitching his calm stare into motivational edits under the caption, "Respect has no dress code." And every major talk show wanted him to appear, but Darius Cole declined them all. He had other plans. Friday morning, he arrived early at one of his smaller properties on the south side, a 3-story brick building with faded paint and good bones. It used to be an old bank. Now, he was turning it into the Horizon Initiative, a workspace for young entrepreneurs who couldn't afford downtown rent. As he stepped through the construction dust, Carla followed with a clipboard. "Press is asking for a comment about the new space," she said. "You sure you don't want to mention what happened last week? It'd boost the launch." Darius shook his head. "If the story's real, it doesn't need a sequel. This," he gestured at the gutted walls, "is the sequel." A few workers greeted him with nods, respect quiet but genuine. One of them, an older man in a paint-splattered uniform, smiled and said, "Heard what you did downtown, boss? Took guts." Darius replied, "Didn't take guts, just patience." The man chuckled. "That's harder." They walked through the main floor, where the scent of new plaster mixed with coffee and ambition. "Make sure the first 10 desks go to startups led by women and minority founders," Darius said. "People who know what it feels like to be dismissed will build with heart." Carla jotted it down, then paused. "You know, you could have destroyed Atlas completely. Lawsuits, penalties. But you didn't." He stopped, turned to her. "Revenge makes headlines. Restoration makes history. Endu." For a moment, neither spoke. The clatter of tools filled the silence like punctuation. Then a voice called from the doorway. "Mr. Cole?" It was Maya, the young woman he'd spared from eviction. She held a folder against her chest, nerves and gratitude wrestling behind her eyes. "I just wanted to say thank you for letting me stay, for not judging me the way we judged you." He smiled gently. "You earned that on your own. What are you doing here?" "I applied," she said, holding up the folder, "to join Horizon. I want to help rebuild." Darius took the folder, skimmed it, and nodded. "Welcome home." Her eyes widened. "You're serious?" "Dead serious. You know what the wrong kind of power feels like. That's exactly the kind of person I want, shaping the right kind." As the day went on, sunlight streamed through unfinished windows, scattering over new desks still wrapped in plastic. Darius stood in the center, looking at the floor plan sketched on blueprints. "Every brick here will mean something," he said quietly. A place that treats janitors, interns, and CEOs exactly the same like people who belong. Carla smiled. You really think that's possible? He nodded. It has to be. Because the opposite is unbearable. His phone buzzed. A message from Avery. Eviction complete. Tenants cleared. Public response. 92% positive. City Council requesting meeting on inclusive business practices. He read it once, then slid the phone back into his pocket. Let them come, he murmured. This time we lead the conversation. Outside, a group of neighborhood kids pressed their faces against the glass, watching the transformation. One boy pointed at Darius. That's him, the sneaker guy. The others laughed, waving shyly. Darius walked over and opened the door. You boys want to see what ownership looks like? They hesitated, then nodded. Then come in. Just wipe your shoes, this floor's still wet with possibility. Their laughter filled the room like light. As the kids ran between half-built walls, Darius turned back to Carla. This is how we rewrite it. Not with punishment, with access. She nodded slowly. You're not just changing buildings, Darius. You're changing the blueprint. He smiled at that, eyes soft but certain. Exactly. A new kind of architecture built on respect. The camera of someone's phone caught that line as it echoed through the unfinished hall. By nightfall, it had already been posted, captioned, and shared millions of times. A new kind of architecture built on respect. And somewhere in the city that once underestimated him, another black man walked into a lobby dressed in sneakers, and this time, no one stopped him. A week later, Chicago was still talking about him. Not like a celebrity, more like a question. People argued in cafes, in elevators, in boardrooms. Would you have done the same? Was he too harsh? Or finally fair? But for Darius Cole, the noise had already faded into background static. He wasn't chasing the echo, he was building what came after it. That morning, he arrived at the newly renamed Cole Horizons Center, the former Atlas office he'd reclaimed. The sign outside still smelled of fresh paint. Inside, sunlight spilled across clean floors and empty desks ready for the new tenants arriving that day. A group of young entrepreneurs waited nervously in the lobby. Some wore suits, some wore hoodies. All looked uncertain until Darius stepped in, dressed the same as always, sneakers, polo, calm. He smiled at them. Morning. Before we get started, I want you to forget everything you think success looks like. Around here, it sounds like collaboration and it looks like comfort. If you can't be comfortable, you can't create. One woman raised her hand shyly. Mr. Cole, sir, is it true what they said? That you fired a whole office because they insulted you? Darius shook his head. No, I fired them because they insulted themselves. The room fell silent. Then someone whispered, That's deep. He smiled. It's just the truth. When you disrespect others, you shrink the space you stand in. I simply gave them a smaller space to match. He led the group through the new work floor, now open plan, filled with natural light and walls of glass instead of cubicles. Every surface gleamed with second chances. We built this place with community grants, not corporate money, he explained. You'll share resources, split profits, and cross-collaborate. No one here owns more air than anyone else. Carla joined them, passing out folders. Each of you was selected not because of your resumes, but because of your resilience. Mr. Cole believes brilliance shows up in sneakers, not just in suits. That drew laughter, soft but proud. Darius looked around the room and saw what he'd always wanted to see, possibility that didn't apologize for existing. At the far corner, Malik and Maya were already setting up laptops, joking quietly as they drafted a sign for the entrance. Respect required beyond this point. He paused beside them. Nice work, he said. Malik grinned. We figured the message needed to stay visible. Good, Darius replied. Because visibility is where change begins. Outside, a camera crew from a local station waited, eager to get an interview. Carla leaned toward him. They'll want a statement for the evening news. He sighed. Let them film the building, not me. But they want your words, Darius. He paused, thinking. Then he said quietly, All right, one statement. He turned toward the camera, posture easy, voice steady. I didn't build these towers for power. I built them for perspective. A week ago, people saw a man in sneakers and thought they saw his worth. But worth doesn't live in a wardrobe. It lives in how you treat people when you think no one's watching. He stopped there, simple. Final. The reporter blinked, speechless for a second before stammering, "Sir, may I ask what drives you?" Darius smiled faintly. "Memory, and the promise that it won't repeat." That night, the clip aired across the country. It wasn't dramatic, no background music, no hashtags. Just his voice, calm against the hum of a city learning to listen. In living rooms, people fell quiet. In break rooms, someone said, "He's right." And in one particular office miles away, the old Atlas branch, now half empty, a receptionist named Shelby watched the clip from her couch. Tears welled up as she whispered to no one. He was never angry. He was teaching. Back at the Cole Horizon Center, the lights stayed on late. Young founders worked side by side, planning launches, designing apps, drafting proposals. And in the middle of it all, Darius stood by the window, looking out at the skyline that once judged him. "It's strange," he murmured, "how fast a place can change once respect walks through the door." Carla, standing beside him, smiled. "That's because you didn't just evict a company, Darius. You evicted a mindset." He nodded slowly, watching the reflection of the city shimmer across the glass, a new kind of architecture, finally built on something solid. The following Monday morning, rain swept through downtown Chicago, steady, silver, and cleansing. The kind of rain that washed glass towers and made reflections blur until no one could tell where the sky ended and the city began. Darius Cole stood inside the lobby of the Cole Horizon Center, watching drops streak down the floor to ceiling windows. His sneakers left faint marks on the marble, the same marble that once felt like a stage for humiliation. Now it felt like home. "Press conference in 20, Carla said, approaching with her tablet. He nodded. "Let's keep it short. No statements about last week. Focus on the mentorship program." Carla smiled. "You know they'll try to bring it up. Then I'll bring it down," he said. "We're not here to relive a moment, we're here to multiply it." By 9:15 a.m., the lobby was filled again, but this time, not with guards or tension, with cameras, microphones, and faces curious rather than cruel. The signage behind the podium read, "The Horizon Mentorship Program Building Equity Through Ownership." Darius took the stage with the same calm presence that had made him a symbol overnight. No suit, no tie, just that gray polo, clean sneakers, and a look that said, "I'm not performing for you. I'm reminding you." "Good morning," he began, voice even, steady. "When we talk about equality, we talk about access, not apology. For too long, talent has been trapped behind appearance. Today, that ends." He gestured toward the audience, where Malik, Maya, and a row of young entrepreneurs sat up front. "This program will give them what I didn't have a seat at the table before someone decides if they belong there." Cameras clicked like rain against glass. Someone from the back called out, "Mr. Cole, do you think the world has changed since your viral moment?" He looked at them and smiled slightly. "The world doesn't change in a moment. It changes in maintenance. You have to clean the floor every day, not just once." The crowd chuckled softly. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. After the conference, he stepped outside for air. The rain had eased into a soft drizzle. A few people stood under umbrellas across the street, holding signs that read, "Respect is a habit. Silence is strength." He nodded to them, grateful, though he never asked for admiration. Then a voice called from behind, "Mr. Cole." It was Shelby, the former receptionist from that first day, holding a folder against her chest, rain dampening the edges. She looked nervous but determined. "I know I don't deserve a second chance, but I came to apologize, not for my job, for my assumptions." He studied her quietly. No anger, just recognition. "You've already taken the hardest step showing up." "I've been volunteering at a re-entry center," she said quickly, "helping people who can't get work because of how they look. I learned that from you." Darius smiled softly. "Then you're already doing the work. Keep doing it." She hesitated. "Do you forgive me?" He paused, not for effect, but to make it true. "Yes, but more important, you forgave yourself the moment you decided to be better." Her shoulders loosened, the rain glinting off her hair like a baptism of sorts. "Thank you, Mr. Cole." He shook his head gently. "Just Darius." Carla watched from the doorway as Shelby walked away, shoulders lighter than when she arrived. "You think she'll be okay?" she asked. Darius nodded. "She's already more okay than most. She saw herself, that's the first renovation any of us need." They walked together toward the curb, the city reflecting in puddles at their feet. Carla said, "You know, it's poetic. You started all this because someone tried to make you leave through the back. Now everyone's walking through the front again. He chuckled quietly. I didn't change the entrance, I just unlocked it. That night, as the skyline glittered under clearing skies, Malik posted a photo of the new mentorship group standing beneath the sign, "Respect required beyond this point." The caption read, "He taught us power isn't loud, it's consistent." Within hours, it spread again, not as drama but as doctrine. No shouting, no scandal. Just a ripple of recognition that sometimes the quietest revolutions happen in lobbies, between one breath and the next. And in the city that once mistook his sneakers for insignificance, Darius Cole had become what every reflection hoped to show. Not just the man who owned the building, but the one who rebuilt what it meant to belong. By mid-autumn, the city had given the story a new name, the Horizon Effect. It wasn't about virality anymore. It was about visibility. In coffee shops, barber shops, and corporate town halls, people used Darius Cole's name like shorthand for quiet accountability. "You're pulling a Darius," someone would say, meaning you handled it with grace, but no one doubted who was in charge. Inside the Cole Horizon Center, the mentorship program had turned the once empty office floor into a living heartbeat. Young entrepreneurs filled every desk, the air thick with ambition and purpose. No luxury, no hierarchy, just rhythm, the sound of creation, replacing the old echo of condescension. Darius walked the floor slowly, stopping at each workstation, greeting people by name. "Morning, Maya. How's the prototype?" "Malik, that pitch deck looks solid. Trim the intro, lead with the impact." They listened, not out of fear, but out of respect, the kind that's earned, not enforced. Carla caught up to him, holding a tablet glowing with new data. "Applications have doubled again. People are calling this a social experiment that actually works." He smiled. "It's not an experiment. It's what happens when you remove arrogance from the equation." She grinned. "That should go on the wall." "Maybe," he said, "but lessons shouldn't need plaques. They should live in people." Later that afternoon, he met with a group of real estate developers from out of state. They'd heard about him, wanted to learn his model. One of them, a man with an expensive watch and a patronizing smile, said, "We admire what you've built here. But let's be honest, stories like yours only happen once in a lifetime." Darius's gaze didn't waver. "Then you're not paying attention. They happen every day, they just don't make you comfortable enough to notice." And the man blinked, laughed nervously. Carla coughed into her hand to hide a smile. Darius continued, "You came here to learn a system. But this isn't software. It's self-awareness. You can't franchise integrity." The room went quiet. One of the younger developers, a woman in her 20s, finally said, "He's right. Maybe that's what we've been missing." Darius nodded slightly. "Then start there. Don't copy the policy, copy the purpose." When they left, Carla turned to him. "You know you just scared off 3 potential investors?" He smiled faintly. "I didn't scare them off. I filtered them out." That evening, as the sun bled into Lake Michigan, Darius stood by the window of his office, the same view that once made him feel small. Now, it was just glass. No higher, no lower. Equal. He pulled a worn photo from his wallet, his younger self, standing in front of a crumbling building in sneakers too big for his feet. He whispered to it, "We made it, but we didn't change for them. We changed the room." Behind him, Malik entered quietly. "Sir, the City Council confirmed tomorrow's award ceremony. They're honoring you with the Urban Leadership Medal." Darius chuckled. "For evicting a company?" "No, sir. For rewriting the meaning of ownership." He looked out the window again, the city lights flickering like applause he didn't need. "Tell them I'll attend," he said. "But I don't want a speech, just a moment." Malik nodded, curious. "What kind of moment?" "The kind that reminds them who this is really for." The next morning, the plaza outside Cole Horizons filled with people, tenants, employees, citizens. The mayor handed him the medal, cameras flashing, applause rising. Darius took the mic, but didn't wear it like a crown. He just said, "Power is not what you hold. It's what you hand over so others can stand taller than you did." He removed the medal, turned to Malik, and placed it in his hands. "This isn't about legacy. It's about continuity." The crowd erupted not in noise, but in reverent quiet. Phones filmed, hearts steadied. And somewhere in that silence, under the wide Chicago sky, Darius Cole finally smiled, not as the man they mocked, not as the one they feared, but as the architect of a new kind of power. Power that didn't need suits or headlines. Only truth and time. The applause from the award ceremony still echoed faintly in Darius's mind, but not because of pride, because of peace. He didn't crave validation anymore. The medal was already gathering dust on someone else's desk, right where it belonged. Now, late at night, he sat alone in the top floor of the Cole Horizon Center, city lights shimmering beneath him like a constellation of second chances. The office was quiet, except for the hum of the HVAC and the faint rhythm of rain against the glass. A knock at the door broke the silence. It was Malik, still in his mentor badge, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Couldn't sleep either?" Darius asked. Malik shook his head. "Not after today. Feels like something's shifting, doesn't it?" Darius leaned back. "It always is. We just notice it more when it's in our favor." Malik sat across from him, hesitant. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Always." "Why'd you really walk into that building that day dressed like that? You knew how people would look at you." Darius smiled faintly. "Because I wanted to see if anything had changed. I built all these towers, but I hadn't tested the ground floor." He sipped his coffee. Turns out, the floor still needed fixing. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of his words grounding the room. Malik said softly, "I think you fixed more than the floor, sir. You fixed the mirror." Darius raised an eyebrow. "The mirror?" "Yeah. Everyone who judged you that day, they weren't looking at you. They were looking at themselves. You just made them see it." Darius chuckled quietly. "You've been spending too much time with the marketing team." "Maybe," Malik grinned, "but I meant it." Outside, lightning flashed a brief cut of white across the skyline. The glass walls reflected both of them, mentor and student, past and future, side by side. Carla entered, tablet under her arm. "Sorry to interrupt. Just wanted to show you something before you head out." She tapped the screen and turned it toward him. A live feed filled the display, hundreds of people gathered outside the building, holding signs under umbrellas. Not protests. Thank you banners. Messages like "Sneakers on, heads high," and "Respect starts here." Malik's eyes widened. "They're here for you." Darius shook his head slowly. "No, they're here for themselves. They just finally see someone who didn't bend the rules to be seen." Carla smiled softly. "Still, it's something. You built a movement without even trying." He looked at her. "Trying is easy. Building something that lasts, that's the real work." He stood, walking toward the massive window overlooking the crowd below. Rain hit the glass harder now, each drop catching city light like applause from the sky. He spoke, not to anyone in particular. "They called me janitor once. Maybe they were right. I clean things, not floors, but systems. I sweep out arrogance, mop up bias, polish truth until it reflects everyone who walks in." Carla blinked, emotional. "That's a hell of a line," he smiled. "Don't write it down. Just remember it." The 3 of them stood together, watching the crowd shift and shimmer in the wet light. Malik whispered, "You ever think about retiring, sir?" Darius shook his head. "No, you don't retire from purpose. You just pass it on." He turned toward Malik, the same calm intensity in his eyes that had silenced a lobby once upon a time. "One day, when they mock you for something you wear, don't defend yourself. Just own the room, quietly." Malik nodded, understanding. "Yes, sir." The thunder rolled again, deeper this time, but it felt less like warning and more like applause, the city agreeing, the universe taking notes. Darius walked toward the elevator, hand on the cool metal door. Behind him, the glow of the office lights caught his reflection, older now, steadier, but still wearing sneakers. He said over his shoulder, almost to himself, "Funny thing about power, when you stop needing to show it, that's when everyone can finally feel it." And with that, he stepped inside, the elevator doors closing like a quiet curtain on a man who had already written his legacy not in marble or money, but in the simple, unbreakable act of being seen. Morning broke clean and quiet over Chicago. The rain had stopped sometime before dawn, leaving the streets slick and shining the city's pulse reset. Inside the Cole Horizon Center, janitors moved through the halls, humming softly as they cleaned. The same floors that once carried arrogance now carried peace. And at 6:15 a.m., the front doors opened. Darius Cole walked in alone. No entourage, no camera crews, just sneakers on marble. The lobby looked different in the morning, light softer, warmer. A young security guard at the desk straightened immediately. "Good morning, Mr. Cole." Darius nodded. "Morning, son. How's the building treating you?" "Better than most," the guard said, smiling. Darius chuckled. "That's the point." He walked toward the center of the lobby, where the echo of his own footsteps seemed to replay everything that had happened here, the laughter, the insult, the silence, the reveal. It all lived in this space now, but not as bitterness as history. He stopped near the spot where Shelby had once stood and whispered, half to himself, "Every building remembers its mistakes. The good ones learn from them." A few minutes later, Carla entered with coffee. "You're in early," she said. "Couldn't sleep," he replied. "Wanted to see how the morning feels after a storm." She handed him the cup. "You know, people are calling you the man who changed Chicago's attitude." Darius smiled faintly. "If I changed anything, it's because people were ready to see differently. I just gave them a mirror." They stood together, watching the reflection of sunlight crawl up the glass walls. Carla said, "So what's next? Another building? Another city?" He shook his head. "No, same mission, different angle." She tilted her head. "Meaning?" "Ownership," he said. "Not just of property, of perspective. I want every janitor, every intern, every voice ignored in every tower to know they can stand where I'm standing right now, not as exceptions, as expectations." Carla's voice softened. "That's bigger than real estate." He looked at her steady. "It always was." Later that morning, employees began to arrive, the new generation of founders, designers, and dreamers who now filled the once toxic floors. When they saw him, they didn't stiffen or scatter. They greeted him like family. "Morning, Mr. Cole." "Morning, boss." "Morning, Darius." He loved that last one the most. Maya passed by with a box of flyers, the mentorship group's first official graduation ceremony. "We're dedicating the auditorium tonight," she said. "Do you want to say a few words?" Darius smiled. "Just one." That evening, the building was alive with light and laughter. The glass atrium sparkled, filled with people who looked nothing alike but shared the same steady sense of belonging. On stage, Malik introduced him to a standing ovation that he never asked for. Darius stepped forward, microphone in hand, voice steady as ever. "Tonight isn't about me. It's about what happens when a place stops judging who walks through its doors, when power doesn't need a uniform, and respect doesn't need permission." He paused, letting the silence stretch. 10 minutes changed my life once, but the truth is every minute since has been about changing someone else's." The audience leaned in. He looked across the room at Shelby, now mentoring interns, at Maya, standing tall, at Malik, proud, at Carla, nodding. And then he said the last words that would define everything that came before. "Power isn't what they give you. It's what you choose not to take away from others." The applause rose slow, then thundered not out of spectacle, but recognition. Because everyone in that room had felt unseen once. And now, they weren't just seen, they belonged. Later, after the crowd had gone and the lights dimmed, Darius stood once more in the lobby. The night guard waved from the desk. He waved back, smiling. Outside, Chicago glowed alive, breathing, chained. He looked up at the tower that bore his name and whispered, "Not bad for a man they once called janitor." Then he stepped into the quiet night, sneakers touching the wet pavement, leaving behind not a legend, but a lesson that would outlive him. Dignity doesn't shout. It stands tall, walks steady, and never forgets who it is.